Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, here to the Forum of Hydrogen and Fuel Cells Europe, here on Hannover Fair 2022. And we are following now with a panel discussion, and it's all about H2 Europe, hydrogen in Europe, creating a market mechanism for European hydrogen trade. And to introduce a little bit in that topic, I would like to tell you we are all aware that green hydrogen shall replace fossil fuels in the industry, in mobility, in heating. Therefore, huge amounts of green hydrogen have to be produced. But green hydrogen is still very expensive and it requires large investments and electrolyzers and plants. So to bring together the producers of green hydrogen and their customers, the German government has implemented a funding mechanism called H2 Global, based on the carbon contracts of difference approach. What this actually means, how this mechanism works and how the mechanisms of the H2 Global concept could be implemented in a European context. This is what we want to discuss the next 40 minutes with your participation. So, if I get this mixed here, I would like to welcome my guests here on stage. Right next to me, I welcome the Executive Director of H2 Global Stiftung and member of the National Hydrogen Advisory Board, Dr. Kirsten Westphal. Dr. Westphal, it's good to have you here on stage. And I would like to welcome Werner Diwald. He is chairman of the board of the German Hydrogen and Fuel Cell Association. We were expecting, and we have announced, Jorgo Chatzimarkakis, CEO of Hydrogen Europe, but he couldn't unfortunately make it today. But I think I have two so skilled speakers here on stage. We can cover this topic, the European topic, as well. Dr. Westphal, tell me first, H2 Global is first of all a foundation, isn't it? What exactly are you doing?
Well, I'm responsible for analysis and research at the H2 Global.
We can't hear you yet, sorry. A little bit more. Okay, try again.
Can you hear me right now?
Yeah, that much better, yes.
Well, I'm responsible for analysis and research, so I'm very much looking into the developments of the markets. And of course, we don't have a hydrogen market yet. So it's more the question of how to ramp up and how to kick off the market. And in that regard, I'm, if you wish, accompanying the procedure of implementing the H2 Global mechanism and identifying the lessons to learn from this process. Because when I started almost 6 months ago, I simply was fascinated by this smart idea and the smart instrument. And the more I'm digging into the challenges and the opportunities, the more I'm enthusiastic about the instrument, because there's a lot to learn.
Very good. Tell me a little bit more about this smart instrument. How does it work?
Well, it works the way that we have funding for 3 first auctions for ammonia, methanol, and jet fuel. And all, of course, produced by green electrolysis. And the reason is that we are looking into derivatives first, because this is quicker and it has to be it have to be global auctions. Mm-hmm. So that's basically the background. We are offering 10-year contracts on the supply side in order to give a long-term perspective, in order to really kickstart the projects, and by giving this long-term perspective, we are of course addressing and taking out basically most of the risks for the producers, which is the price risk, the counterpart risk, and we are stepping in as H2 Global, and that's a major element of the mechanism, with an intermediary that physically takes over at one point of the logistical chain the product, and then has another round of auctions on the demand side, but these will be much shorter, in shorter terms, probably one year. And the reason, let me finish, and the reason is in order to really fund this cost difference between the higher price we assume that we have to pay for the long-term purchase agreements and the lesser, most probably, selling price for the product in the beginning. But as soon as the regulation is adapted, we assume that the green product will be of more value. And then the cost difference that has to be matched by the governmental funding is decreasing.
It's just to bridge the period that we have too high prices for green hydrogen derivatives and the consumers of green hydrogen. So you start looking for producers of green hydrogen derivatives. First question, why not green hydrogen itself? Why only ammonia, methanol and jet fuel, you said?
Well, these are the transport vectors that are basically ready to be implemented. That's the major point.
Okay, as far as I know, the steel industry is highly interested in green hydrogen itself, so that could be also a market, but maybe the gap is too large there.
Well, on the demand side, yes, but we are now in a price environment that is highly uncertain. We have seen a price crisis and we are amidst an energy crisis. So the 900 million for buying 3 products is not that much. So it's more I would say, homeopathic instrument. But the smart thing behind it is really kicking off trading and market structures.
And the ammonia, for instance, ammonia or methanol, you will offer that to consumers of the derivatives. That could be probably, large engines, maritime applications, or what do you think of? Or will it be the fertilizer industry?
It's very difficult to say. That's one of the learning and the lessons to learn, I think. And of course, we have the grey market that yet exists for ammonia. But I mean, part of the logics using derivatives is also looking into new applications. So that will be very interesting to see, and we are not offering it a tender. It's really double-sided auctions on both sides. So we will see who will bid.
Mr. Diwald, a very clever instrument, as I think, to bridge the period of time, which could be a few years or even a decade, until we have prices that match the consumer's demand. What was the contribution of the DWV for it?
Perhaps first I would say, because you mention it every time again, the high prices. I don't think that is a high price. I think we have in the moment the gap. There's not a fair market. Okay. So we have on one side the fossil energies and on the other side the green energies. And we have seen the same in the renewable energy market system for offshore and so on. We see now the prices come down, of course, but now the fossil prices goes up. For the background for the war, and now we're on the same price level. But so if we say every time the green hydrogen is too expensive, or it's expensive, and that is the reason why we need the instruments that create an expectation that the price will fall, I don't know, 90%. That will not be happened. So we will have a high price on a level what we see now. We have made a lot of researches. What we not seen a fair pricing for the fossil energy and for the environment impact and so on and so on. And that will be increased now what we see if you look to the fuel sector. You have to use green fuels and suddenly you see what green fuels cost and suddenly green hydrogen is on the same price level or it's lower. So I'm a little bit careful with the wording. But DWV, what was our impact? I think we create this H2 Global concept together, and I think our background was this experience from the renewable energy sector. So the EEG, what we say, this renewable energy law in Germany, this EEG system, it's a blueprint for this program. And this experience we bring in the program, in the concept, and develop it together with the knowledge that we need a sprinter program. I will call it a sprinter program. Of course, we need a market design, and we need the market design tomorrow normally if you see the targets of 2030. But let us be realistic. That is a long way to create on the European level. All the countries have negotiated through the regulation. So that needs time, and we have no time. So we need a sprinter program to create a market for green hydrogen, a fair market, so that you can cover your operate cost. if we look back, and that is also the experience, we see all these CapEx programs, and that is great that we get from the state, from the government, from the EU, from the German, a lot of money to develop technologies. And the companies invest also a lot of money. If you see all these companies here invest millions of dollars or billions of dollars. And now I think the technology is ready, and we need now the first projects where you can create, which have a business case. And H2 Global create this business case. And I think that is very important for the next step, to scale up the technology. Of course, we need research. You see by diesel combustion engine, we make a lot of research today, after 100 years. That will be happened also in the hydrogen industry. But what we need more is, in the moment, market, scale up, real projects which are in the money, which create a return of invest. That is the best thing to learn, how we can really integrate the renewable energy production, the production of green hydrogen, storage systems, transport. So we need a renewable energy system with energy security supply. That is very important. And that I miss this wording, energy security supply, very often if I hear some other solutions, how we create our energy business tomorrow.
Okay, what I've learned is green hydrogen is not too expensive. It's the gray hydrogen or the gray energy is just too low in price.
I fully agree with Werner. When I mentioned the energy price crisis, I was talking about the overall environment that we are in now. And it's rarely that we're talking about one price for a product, but we're knowing that it's a relational price development that we're seeing with shifts from one source to another. And this is why it's so difficult now to really kick in. I mean, you would assume, but with gray, expensive gray products, it's easier to bring in green hydrogen. Some assume that, but it's not. I think the point we are both making is you still need the business case, you still need the long-term perspective, because the environment is now so uncertain and very much in flux.
There must be a third party, the party that gives the 900 million. It's the Ministry of Economics, right?
Right.
And you said it's homeopathic. What do you believe? How long will that last, the 900 million?
Well, it is for 10 years.
Okay, you can spend it within 10 years.
To be very precise, it is, we are buying for 900 million euros 3 products over 10 years.
Okay, and you didn't buy it yet?
To be sure that we don't exceed the funding. It's in that regard, it's a very, very tailored and constrained instrument, in the sense it's also for the taxpayer. You can oversee the period, you can oversee the volumes. And the more we get back the price on the selling side, this flows back into the budget. So this is why from my point of view, it's very smart in that sense, because you can then adapt and take the lessons learned from the global auctions, for example, for the European auctions, to translate that into pure hydrogen, pure green hydrogen, which I think is the necessary next step we have to take, because this is actually what we really want.
So do that with this double auction model, and is the one side, the producer side, is the auction on already, or are you preparing it at the moment?
We are preparing it.
Yeah, preparing. When does it go out, and where does it go to?
Well, it will be published both on our website as well as on the Ministry for Economics on the website, and we hope that we will sign the first contracts at the end of this year or beginning of next year.
And it's open to everybody, or will you certainly go to Namibia, to Chile, to Saudi Arabia, to Australia?
We don't pick and choose.
But you maybe inform your partners overseas. You know, they probably don't know your website. Or will they?
They should.
They should, okay.
Hopefully they should. Of course, we're trying to publish, to announce what we're doing. I'm not that afraid, because my reading is that H2 Global is really very attractive, and we have a lot of eyes on the instrument, because it's not just the auctions itself, but we are also providing a first catalogue of criteria and standards, which is also becoming most likely, hopefully, a reference point. So honestly, we have a lot of eyes on us, and this is well a big challenge, burden, but also great opportunity. So I don't worry that much that we won't have the publicity.
One topic is probably the certification of green hydrogen, and what is green hydrogen today, and what will it be in 10 years' time?
Exactly.
That's a problem, isn't it? How do you going to solve this problem?
Well, hopefully we'll solve it by very strict and clear criteria on the green characteristics and features of the product, by also thinking through how to translate the sustainable development goals into specific criteria for the projects. At the end of the day, we have to say that the final selection of criteria will be published by the Ministry for Economics. So it's not us, but it's really published by the Ministry for Economics.
And then you need...
Because they are giving and providing the funds.
Right. And then you need some kind of grandfathering, so that even in 10-year time, even our certification of green hydrogen has changed, is still valid then in 10 years' time. Very important also. Mr. Diwald, also large investment have to be done to produce large amounts of hydrogen overseas. So if they have 10-year contracts and long contracts, they will probably then start to invest. Without H2 Global, they just wouldn't. So H2 Global is a way to get the green hydrogen.
Yes, yeah, right. Yeah, of course. I see this as, in the moment, the one solution which we have, which we can offer for the market. So I think that is really a success story, that we get this 900 million, like Kirsten mentioned. It's not a lot of money, but it's a success. And I think that is a very important message to the branch, to show them and bring the evidence from the government. We believe on you, we believe on this solution. And of course, we need more of this money, because I expect what I mentioned before. We don't see very soon the right regulations. We see how long it needs to create the RED II. I work very long on it to change, but to give the possibility to use green hydrogen in the fuel sector. And now we work over 3 years on the delegated act to give the regulations what is green hydrogen and so on. So that needs time. I think that is normal, but on the other side we have not enough time. So we need, I think, more billion euros. 20, 30 billions on the European level, 10 billions in Germany. That sounds a lot of money, but you have to see it's over 10 years. So if you say, okay, we need 10 billion for Germany, for example, to create a German production market for green hydrogen, and I think the whole market is very important to create a strong industry behind it. And we want to be the front runner. Then it's 1 billion in 1 year. For 1 year, if we make it over 10 years. And if you see what the market perspective is, the potential. So Mr. Timmermans now say we need 20 million tons of green hydrogen in 2030. That is a market for electrolyzers between 250 and 300 gigawatt in 7.5 years. And then spend 1 billion in a year to be the market leader in this technology. I think that is really a profitable investment from the state. And I expect that they have to do it now. And of course, they need a little bit support, motivation.
Of course.
But yeah, that is the way what we have to go. And what we see now, okay, we pay for the EEG 25 billion euros each year. But without that, we've never seen this great success story for offshore or for PV. We make perhaps there's some industrial strategy mistakes, but it was a learning time, and now we can transfer it exactly 100% to the hydrogen business. And for this perspective, and we compared really, and the potential we can compare, I think that is the reason why we think it is the right way to make a call for this 10 billions for a German program.
Mr. Diwald, you mentioned regulation, you mentioned RED II, and on the consumer side, it's highly important to know what are the circumstances for using a green hydrogen. So do you think before we have managed all about RED II, nobody will invest in green hydrogen?
Yeah, we've seen what happens. The delegate was not there, and nobody invests. It's only big announcements.
Yeah.
But the real financial decisions are not made. So we need this program. But I think, yeah, on the demand side or on the public side, I think it's now more visible than 8 or 12 weeks now ago. We see suddenly how important security supply is. In the COVID time also, we see now that a lot of cars are by the manufacturers and they can't be sold because they are missing one chip from Asia. So I think the feeling by the public is a willingness to create a sustainable own solution to have energy security supply is there, or yeah, the awareness for that is there now there, and I think we have to use it. Green hydrogen, and that is the information, or that is the message what we can give. Renewable energy is a solution. We have needed decarbonization or defossilization in the next latest 25 years, more perhaps in 15 years. That's not a lot of time. And without green hydrogen, it's not possible. Without green hydrogen, there's no energy security possible. There's no possibility to transfer the energy from the region where we find or we have a lot of renewable energy potential in the industry regions. It's a great solution, and only green hydrogen makes it possible to create a European energy union, to create a new feeling for the EU. And I think that is a great possibility. And that is a little bit missing. I miss it a little bit if I see some studies which only look on electrons. It's great. It shows great solution on a white paper. But in the reality world, or the real world, it's crazy. It's not possible. So if we look to perhaps Bulgaria, Spain, South Spain, how we want to deliver the energy to Munich, to Audi, to Daimler, to BMW. It's not possible over electric grid line, but it's possible over the pipelines. Why we have this relation or this dependency from the Russian gas? Because pipeline transport is so cheap, so easy. It's simple, it's secure. Why we don't transfer it to the hydrogen and look to better partners like in Norway, like in south of Europe, like in southeast of Europe. I think that is, let us learn from the fossil energy and we haven't to create new things. We have only to look what we made there, and then we transfer the right things, not the mistakes, on the new kind of energy.
I would like to give you the opportunity, if you have any questions. There are already the first 3 questions over there. I will come to you with a microphone. Just introduce yourself, please.
Marek Pinkas, I'm from Poland. I'm from the company that is building first refueling stations in Poland. And I'm wondering, because I came across the information that the definition of the green hydrogen is generally produced at the same time and in the same region. So how it is linked with the logistic of hydrogen, which is generally producing on the south, but like Spain or Bulgaria, which you mentioned, and using in Germany. So it is something not, I would say, working together.
Dr. Westphal, would you like to answer to that? Mr. Diwald.
I think it's right, what you mentioned, in the same region. It makes not sense to produce the electricity, then transport it over the cable to Germany, and then you make hydrogen, because we have not these grid lines. It makes it has more sense to produce the hydrogen there and then use the pipelines. That is more easily. So you can do it in the same region. The EU means with the same region on the same side of the grid engpass or grid congestion point. So we would make a big mistake if we increase this electricity point, if we produce on one side the electricity and on the other side the hydrogen. then we increase the problem. So it makes them in the same region. And of course, if the wind turbine and the PV power plant not work because the sun is not shining and the wind is not blowing, how I should produce the hydrogen? In future, if we have only renewable energy in the system, it's only possible to do it in the same time. Yes, of course. I know that there are some market actors now that mean you can make an average over the year, but that means you need coal power, you use coal power plants. So that's not possible. I think it's very simple. There are some actors who do it in one plant, so directly connected. And then it's clear. If you look on this project, it's only possible if the wind is blowing, then you can produce hydrogen. It's normal. It's not an idea, not a political idea. That is a physics. So it don't work in another way.
We have 3 more questions. I will go here.
Weber, Green H2 Systems, Germany. I would like to ask you about the marketplace. We all know hydrogen transport is expensive, but still ammonia and methanol, as you are discussing, its energy density is far below coal or mineral oil. So transport is expensive. Where will be your physical marketplace where you fix the price?
There's a double auction. So on the other side, on the consumer side, you will also have an auction.
Yeah. It's a double, if you're asking directly H2 Global. Yeah. Now it's a double auctionary mechanism. So for the sales side, there will be the auctions. And it will be, it's a quite complicated mechanism to show it without the slides. But we will say we have this amount of money, how much volumes do you bid for that? With the whole delivery chain to the delivery point. And there is a delivery area defined in Europe, so it's not just Germany, it's the whole area of the ports of Rostock towards Hamburg, Rotterdam, Antwerpen, Seebrugge, and inside Germany, Duisburg. So this will be part still of the negotiation process and specifications that are needed.
When will this second auction start? You have an idea already when the second auction of the consumer side?
On the consumer side?
On the consumer side. When
the
will that start?
The first deliveries should
be
place
end of 2022.
2 years after the first auctions being signed.
All right, 2024 then.
2020 at the end.
Maybe
2024, 25.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Geitmann.
Sven Geitmann from H2 magazine for hydrogen fuel cells. Mr. Diwald, you already talked about the hydrogen price. In the beginning, it was at the fueling station €8. Now it's €9.50. And I heard rumors that the price will rise up to 12 or more euros. So what is your impression? What will be the consequence for the market? Will there be a further market? Will it be an interruption, or what will happen through these rising prices?
I think, of course, the best thing is the price is very low. But on the other side, we have some companies who want to make a profit, of course. So I think it depends a little bit. In the end, we need a market design, and we see the price will be created from the demand of what the users will be paid. We know what the production price is of the green hydrogen, because we know what the renewable energy is cost, and then it's very easy to calculate it. So we see a production price between, of course it depends on the region where I produce the hydrogen, but it's between 3.5 and 6 euros or so. It depends really where you produce it. In Australia it's very cheap, but then you have a transport cost. But we make for H2 Global a lot of calculations, and we believe that the production price for green hydrogen delivered to Germany in the future, not over derivatives, but over pipelines, or we produce it here on the same level, and I think it's between, or I know it, we have to see what happens with the electrolysis prices in the next years, but what we know, that we can a little bit calculate between 3.50 and 5 euros. But then it must be delivered to the filling station, then it must be compressed on a high level. It depends, see in the end 350 or 700 bars. By the individual cars, it's 700 bars, by trucks, per 350, but perhaps in the end it's 700 bars. Then it's more expensive. Then the compressors, we have to see what the electricity price is in the end for the compressions. It has an influence also. And then, that is a big man in the black room, is what is the tax? In the moment we see this price 9.50, what you mentioned, without tax. But in the end, of course, if we see suddenly 100% fuel cell cars, I hope, then of course the finance minister comes and say, hey, I need some income, and I make a tax on it. And I think then you can't say how high must the tax today, because how much from the production of green hydrogen for the transport sector we will see in Germany, and how much we will see in Europe, and how much we will see outside the Europe. Because that has, of course, also an influence on the state income. So if we produce the whole amount of hydrogen for the transport sector in Germany, then of course I have a higher value chain where I can take tax on it. Then the tax for fuels in the transport sector is a little bit lower. If it comes from all hydrogen from Australia, then we will see a higher tax, and then we will see a higher price. For me, the other question, and I think that is more the right answer to your question. When you have no option, it's only the question, if it's social fair, can the social pay this price? But they have to pay the price. We see it now with the fossil fuels. Suddenly fuel costs 2 euros a liter, and the streets are full. If you will say, give us this message, or this press message 2 years ago, and say, okay, now we increase the price to 2 euros, everybody will say, the death.
So
no combustion engine will be solved.
So you're
it's
saying
not possible.
they will pay any price for green hydrogen if
I think not
if it's
everything,
only availability.
but I think it must be. We have to see what the society can be pay, and what is be able to pay, and what is social fair, and then the combustion, the fuel cell consumption of a car, if it goes down to 0.7 for an individual car, and we have to pay 12 euros. Then it's 10 euros for 100 kilometers. If you see what we have to pay now, I think that is not really the issue.
Mr. Diwald, there's another topic, and I see more questions from the audience, but I would like to touch this topic, the European outlook. Dr. Westphal, in the coalition treaty, it said H2 Global has to become European. What are your efforts to make it European?
Well, we of course have tried to convince the European Commission, but also other member states. So I think it's not a one-way process, but it's really convincing through a smart instrument. And I couldn't agree more with Werner pointing out that to me it's really the new European project that we have to address and have to start. A green electricity and hydrogen union, because we started with coal and steel, and we have to continue with hydrogen and steel. And sometimes I think we are too much overly focused. I mean, I understand that on the technological, on the regulatory questions, but in order to understand the gigantic tasks, the Herculean task and the magnitude, we also have to admit that it's not just, quote unquote, hydrogen is not just an issue of the energy system transformation, which as such is huge, but it's also an undertaking of the industrial revolution along the whole value chain. And this is why I really think it has to become a European project. And as Werner said, we have to really start and kick off. We need that kind of spaces for experiments. We sometimes analyze how the system should look like, and we do that in the modeling, and then we come to the prioritization of energy efficiency first, electricity with renewables, and then hydrogen. But this is a political prioritization, and we have to do that all in parallel, which is this great challenge. And this is why, of course, H2 Global is the sprinter instrument, as Werner said. It's standing, it's European in the sense that we have already companies in our funders, and you can start with these kind of regional projects. And this is the way I see the development of hydrogen in Europe. We have to start with clusters and then develop the infrastructure around the clusters and to scale up. And that will be, as Werner said last point, a huge challenge for the society in accompanying the way, but it will be also a huge challenge for the cohesion of the European Union. And this is why I would really urge the European Commission to take up all the instruments that are standing and use them.
It seems to me there's a good opportunity right now because the European Commission wants to reduce the dependence of fossil fuels from Russia and investing in repower, 300 billion, they say. So you should probably go there and say, well, H2 Global is worth at least 10% of this 300 billion.
Don't worry, we're doing that, but we are non-profit. I'm really enthusiastic about the instrument. Because I think if you think that through, to me it's obvious that you build on an existing instrument that is European already, that you take the lessons learned, and I mean, imagine they would create another instrument. They would be competing with each other, so it doesn't make sense. So we should really have a very concerted approach. We talked ages about the necessity of the European Union to speak with one voice to the world, to Russia. At least now you have an instrument that you could use like the one window to the world, but it still provides all companies to compete. It still provides innovation. It doesn't change the structure, which I think is so attractive, but it still has the opportunity for government funds, for the European Commission, to give criteria and say, here we go, for that auction we use that and this technology with this and that region. And I think this is the big challenge right now. You look into WTO, GATT criteria and how to address diversification in a more strategic way and to work with the neighborhood.
A lot of things to discuss. I've seen your question. I'm terribly sorry I can't take it. A lot of things to do still to make it a European project and a very successful way of introducing hydrogen into the industry. It was a pleasure having you here on stage, talking to you, and I would like to thank you, dear audience, for your questions or for your interest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.